So simple object access protocol. Okay, this one is one RESTful. RESTful, FUL. Okay, RESTful. REST services, basically we call it as a REST service. Okay. Before this SOAP and REST, right? Okay, so the concept is like I have an app service somewhere is deployed, it's running. Service A, some service is running. Okay, on let's say machine one, some machine one or some servers, it is running. Now, some other application wants to communicate data over the internet. Okay, we have application or service B want to send some data from this application to here over the net, over the internet. Okay, so earlier days, like in even 2010s till 2010s, there was a concept called remote method invocation. Okay, like from one server to another server, they were used to call like a remote method invocation. Just giving this one, but no need to remember all this, but just to give the background how this service is AP, simple object access protocol, REST they introduced. Okay, remote method invocation. So EJBs, there are like EJB. I don't know if you heard about EJBs or not. In Java, there will be EJB concepts are there. Okay, so earlier days they use like from service A. So what they do is some one method they will write on the service A. They expose over the network so that application B calls that method for sending the data, for communicating data. Okay, that is the way like they use remote method invocation. The name itself says remotely method. So you know method, right? In Java there is a method which takes two arguments and returns, which takes some arguments and returns the data, right? Method, that is a method, right, in Java. So that method remotely you are accessing. That's why they call it as a remote method invocation. Getting right? What is I'm talking? Remote method invocation. Everyone is there or not? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So there were some issues with this remote method invocation. What is happening is like here this application is running on Windows. Let's say this application is running on Linux machines. So there was some issues with like data encoding a data. So the character format is having some issues. Okay, so it was not able to communicate data from one service to another service. Okay, so later what they did is there was a governing body. They introduced this simple object access protocol. Okay, what this says is you can communicate from one server to another server over the internet. It's a cross-platform independent. Cross-platform independent is nothing but, so you can call from Windows to Linux, Linux to Windows. There are many other operating systems are there, not only these two operating systems. Okay, do you know any other operating systems?
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, Linux, yeah. So even Android is also one operating system.
And iOS also.
iOS is one operating system. Okay, so you can call from any operating system. So this communication happens, we call it as a cross-platform independent. Okay, so they come up with this. They designed two protocols saying that so protocol rest. First they introduced SOAP. Okay, so SOAP they used to communicate from one system to another system over the network, which is a cross-platform independent. Okay, so they given some structure. Okay, we have to follow the structure so that you can develop the service. You can use it for communication from one service to another service. Okay, so this one later they call it as a lightweight protocol. This is lightweight, but later they realized this simple object access many years they used. Nowadays also many people are using. Okay, but there is some issues they identified in SOAP, SOAP protocol. So performance wise there was some issues. Okay, so they come up with them, and because of Java, JSON is introduced, right? Because of that, what they did is like, instead of using SOAP, nowadays people are using REST APIs. Okay, this is also cross-platform independent. Like, it's like Windows to call any platform like Linux, Ubuntu, whatnot, all the operating system it works. Okay, that is a REST APIs. REST APIs. Nowadays, many people are using REST because it's a lightweight and message structure is very small. Okay, and you can use it both XML and JSON. Okay, performance wise is very good compared with SOAP, service oriented, so simple object access protocol. You got it, right? Okay, so don't go with in detail. We'll learn later also, but you should know the terminology SOAP. So, okay, so basically we used to communicate from one system to another over the internet. Okay, so in case of SOAP or REST APIs, what we do, we will say is the service which is exposed. Let's say this service is exposed. Okay, we call it as a provider. Okay, and service who's consuming is called as consumer. Are you getting? In case of JMS, in case of JMS, you remember, right? Sender, receiver, publisher, subscriber. Okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay, so, there you have a JMS server in between, but here there is no server. It will be. So you will have a provider which exposes some method. Let's say addition method, subtraction method, or create a customer. Okay, it's an operation. Those will be exposed as a service, which is called as a provider, and consumer, which calls the service provider service. Okay, and this provider service will perform some operations, and then it will return the data to consumer. Are you getting? So provider is, suppose, let's say I wanted to find rate, currency rate. Let's say this find the currency rate. If I give $1, what is my currency in India? Rupees. Okay, some operation. What it will do? It will go to the correct to the database or somewhere. It will fetch and it will give the response back. Okay. So this communication happens over HTTP protocol. Okay. So we are exposing some methods or operations. We call it as a, this is a provider. You got it, right? Provider. What is provider? You know, right now? Okay. Which provides methods, operations, basically, some logic, which is a service, basically. Consumer is a client. You can say client or consumer, which consumes the services provided by the provider. just like what you call like Reliance is a provider or Airtel is a provider, correct? And we are the consumers. We are consuming the services provided by the provider. You are getting right. So they expose some APIs. Expose provider will expose APIs. Okay, we are consuming those APIs. Consumer is consumes the API. Are you getting? Okay. So when they wanted to consume, right, this provider consumer, they will call the service provider on HTTP protocol. Okay, and there will be some operation name will be there. Okay, and request some data. Sometimes some place we need the service from here to provider. We'll send all this information. Okay, in response, provider will send us a response. Okay, response means some data it will return. Getting? Okay, everyone got right what is how the communication happen in both cases. So as well as rest, this is a way communications happens. Okay, clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in case of soap, okay, we used to like when any provider develop right their services, they will give a WSDL. They call it as a WSDL, web service description language. Please note down web service description language. This is very important. Web service, web service. Okay, this is web service description language. We're getting characters. So this is very important. This consumer provider who whenever we develop provider, okay, so we will create a WSDL, web service description language. I'm not explaining in detail, just for you to, I'm just giving a kind of a taste, like what is so, what is rest. I'm not going in depth. We'll come back later. It's like the first I will teach you a little bit, and then I will go again, add some more topics to web again, like that we will learn. Okay, so now provider, consumer. So when we develop a provider, right, we will create a WSDL. Okay, we call it a WSDL. WSDL, you're getting right? WSDL. Someone says WSDL, but many people talks like WSDL. Okay, so web service description language. We'll develop web service description language in case of SOAP only. Are you getting? We're talking about SOAP. I'm not talking about REST now. I'm talking about SOAP. In case of SOAP, simple object access protocol, provider on the provider. Once we develop the services in nothing but it's a method. You will create a method. You find the currency rate or get the employee details. If I give employee ID, I should get a employee details, first name, last name, then all the data. Are you getting? If I give course ID, I should get course details. So the provider is developed some course details service. So consumer sends a course ID. So this provider will connect to database, get the data, and it will return course details to the consumer. Are you getting? Everyone is silent, so silent. No one
Yes,
drops
sir.
silent.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, that is called web services. We develop web service, which is a SOAP service. Under web services, we will have SOAP service, REST service. Anyone can be called it as a web services.
Okay.
So earlier, 5 years back, if you say hey, I know web services, SOAP services, people will blindly take you to the project. Okay, if you can able to develop web service and show interview first. What is REST service? How do you develop a REST service? It will be asked. Okay. So, but first step is I am explaining SOAP services. In both cases, you will have a provider, a consumer. In case of provider, you will develop some kind of services. For example, if I give employee ID, I get a employee details. That is one service. If I give course key, I should get course details. That is one service. If I give dollar, what is the currency rate? That is also a service. Like that, we will develop services. For each service, we will create a wisdom. Okay, web service description language. This web service description language contains what it contains, no, methods or operations. Okay, it will contain methods or operations. Methods is nothing but like in Java, we call it as a method. Correct? You write a different methods, right? So that's why we call it methods. Or operations like addition operation or finding a currency. These are methods actually, but we call it as a operations. So information about method or operation will be written in the web service description language. WSDL is nothing but it's a kind of a file. Okay, dot WSDL. Some name will be there. File name dot WSDL. Okay, so this web service description language contains methods and operations. Let's say addition is there, we'll mention in that wisdom. How it looks like, what is the exact format, you no need to learn, okay, but what it contains, you should know. Okay, so this first when we develop, again I'm telling, repeating the same. When we develop a provider, okay, we'll have a web service description language. Okay, we'll create a web service description language that contains methods or operation information like addition, input, and each method input output will be there. Each method or operation input and output details will be there. Input output details means what is my input, what is the structure of my input, what is my output, or structure of the output will be there, and the location of the service, location of the web service. So location in the sense location or address, sometimes we call it as address also. Location means like where this service is running. Is it running in some IP, right? Maybe some hosted somewhere, so that address will be there, hosted. The service is hosted somewhere, that address will be mentioned in the web service description language. Okay, so we create this WSDL and we'll put it all those information, and we'll give that information, that WSDL, to consumer applications. Are you getting? We create first services, then we create something like WSDL. We'll create a WSDL file. That WSDL file, before this consumer calls, so they have to develop their code, right? This consumer also should develop that code. So they will, before they're developing the code, they will ask a provider, hey, can you give me your WSDL? Okay, so that WSDL will be provided to this consumer application. So this consumer application uses this WSDL to create a consumer code, consumer side code. Are you getting? Okay, so using WSDL only, they can create this consumer code. Once they create that code, okay, they can make the call to provider over HTTP. They get the response back. If any changes happen to this service, this provider service, okay, or new extra operations added, or existing operation only some changes made, Again, this visitor will be modified. Okay, to consumer. Hey, we'll say like that. Hey, consumer, we modified our code. Now use this latest visitor and made changes to your code. What they do is they will use this visitor and they will write the code. Okay, so that they can consume or call this provider service. Is that clear so far? Any questions? Anything? No? No questions? Okay. So this one I will continue tomorrow. How to develop these web services. Then we'll go deep dive. Or like I will show you what it's there, how to see these things, Mr. Everything. Okay. So this is the chapter. Now I'm going to explain how to develop web service in web methods. How we can do the testing also. Is that clear? So assuming that your mind should always some application is there in the front end. Okay, I call them as provider, consumer. Okay, consumer application. Everything here, consumer application. Are you getting? So provider is the one. It's a service. We will expose APIs. Is it clear? Okay. Now, how to develop a provider first? I will explain. How to develop consumer. Okay, we'll see practically also. You guys also will develop. Let's say I'm working with a this one is my web service. Okay, so this web service exposes 4 operations. Let's say 4 operations. Operations in the sense like addition. Example, I'm just saying addition, add, subtract, multiply. Okay, division. Okay, I'm using these 3, 4. But in actual projects, it's not like addition, subtraction, multiplication. Don't go with say addition, subtraction will be there. Okay, in actual projects, maybe it's a different way. Like one service may be there, calculates this one currency. Okay, one service will be there which provides you like if you give the zip code. Okay, it gives you area name. You're getting right, area name. Or one service will give you like employee ID. If you give the employee ID, it will go and fetch the database and give you employee details. Okay, so those are my operations. Are you getting? Operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We call it as an operations, right? Similarly, get an employee. Okay, get an employee by ID. That is a one operation. Okay, get currency. Currency. If I give dollar, what is the currency in this one? Rupees. Okay, or get weather by zip code. Okay, do you know there are web services are there? You can search in Google also. They provide you weather report also. Okay, if you give zip code or postal code, it gives you like what is the temperature, humidity, and all those things will be given. Okay, there are web services are there. Okay, stock market, even stock price also there is a web services. There are many web services are there. If you give stock symbol, okay, they give you the code on that day, on that time. Okay, so these are the operations. Are you getting? So any questions so far? Web services, operations, the term I'm using, operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication. Here I'm using, but instead of add subtraction, I can say get employee by ID. Some operation I'm just saying get by post ID, postal code, something, get currency. Okay, so where we give us yeah, get currency, get address by zip code. I'm just giving some ideas. So these are all operations. Any questions here? No? Okay. So this web service is running on somewhere, right? Some server. It may be run on some server, right? So some IP will be there, correct? And port will be there. Definitely will there. Port will be there. Okay. And yeah, protocol. Protocols like HTTP protocol or JMS protocol. There are two protocols we learned so far: HTTP or JMS protocol. Okay, or file protocol and all those things are there. So web services supports mostly two protocols: HTTP or JMS. Okay, HTTP or HTTPS / JMS. Okay, this is the protocol it supports. Means what does it mean? Suppose let's say we have a consumer application, consumer, okay, consumer or client application want to invoke one of the operation. Let's say get EMP employee by ID. Okay, it calls this service, web service, with operation name is get by EMP ID. Okay, it says like my operation name is get by EMP ID. Okay, on protocol, some protocol should be there, right? So it says HTTP protocol. Okay, HTTP protocol. Address should be there, right? So how can we call? So some the location the service is there, right? So we need to send a request to the some, right? So HTTP protocol will be used, IP address will be used, port, and there will be URI. This part is called URI. Okay, and then we'll send body. In the body, some data need to be sent, right? I want like get EMP ID. So I need to send a employee ID. So that ID will be here. Or get currency. So my dollar and rupee, right? Source and target. Source and target currencies. Those information need to be provided in the body. Or get address by zip code. Again, zip code need to be sent in the body so that we can reach, we can call this web service. Are you getting? Okay. I know it takes time for you understanding these things, but at least 1%, 1 or 2
Yes.
are you getting whatever I am explaining?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we are saying this web service, right? When we develop this web service, we will write a WSDL.
WST.
Yeah, WSDL. We call it as a web service
Description language.
language. So somewhere also we learn description language. What was that? Any idea? Remember?
Sir.
XSD. XSD also we learn, right? XSD.
Oh,
XML
yeah.
schema
Schema
definition. Oh, so
definition.
that is a definition. Okay. This one is web service description language.
Language.
Yeah. So when we develop a web service, first after developing or before development, we will write a WSDL. Okay. Web service description language. It contains what it contains. Okay. It's again written in XML only. Okay. Written in XML only. XML means is a data representation, opening tag, closing tag, like that only it will be there. Okay, written in XML. Okay, so it describes about my web service. So this WSDL describes, if anyone asks what is WSDL, describes about web service. If you want, you can note it down also. Okay, so this describes about web service. Describes means it explains, it tells about the web service, what it contains. Okay, so example, okay, method name. So in this case, method get employee by ID, correct? So get whether by postal code, get currency, get address, zip code. method name, input and output arguments. Okay, and address, web service address. Address means IP and port, right? In case of applications, we call address is nothing but IP and port. Okay, and protocol. Are you getting? It describes about a web service. So my web service, let's say, what are the methods are there? So let's say for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division are there. Okay, it describes about these are the methods are there. Okay, and their input and output. Each method or operation, input output will be there. Okay. Operation or method name, input output is there. Address, so where this web service is hosted. Address means where this web service is hosted. Hosted means right, hosted. Okay, cricket match is hosted in England. Test match is hosted in, so means there we are playing. Similarly, web service is hosted. Okay, means IP address will be here, IP and port number will be there, and transport protocol. Transport protocol. Getting? So these are will be there, transport protocol. Okay, so whenever we develop a web service, our first step is we'll create a visitor. Okay, web service description language. Okay, which is written in XML. Basically, the structure, we'll see the structure, how it will be there. It's written in XML. Okay, so it describes about web service. It describes about our web service, whatever we develop or developing, that web service it describes. What it describes, one is it contains like operation name. What are the operations this web service exposes? Okay, in this case, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, and arguments. For each input and output arguments, addition takes two input arguments, A and B, which is integer, and return is C is my output, like that. Okay, so input output arguments. Address means where this web service is hosted, some IP address and port number, and the transfer protocol, whether it's supposed HTTP or HTTPS or JMS. Are you getting this? If anyone has wisdom, right? Now you have to tell me in general words. You do that. Everyone understood? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, sir.
Okay, again, right? Yeah. So, whenever we develop web services, I'm not talking about REST services. I'm talking about SOAP services. Web services contain two types of web services are there. One is SOAP, SOAP, and second one is RESTful. Okay, I'm talking about SOAP now. When we develop any SOAP service, okay, SOAP service means that is a provider. Basically, the one is which exposes APIs. That is called a provider. Okay, whenever we develop any web services, provider. Okay, so we have to write WSDL. Okay, which is web service description language. Okay, which is written in XML. Basically, the structure is XML. Okay, let me show you before I go. Okay, and then we'll work on it. So, which is written in XML. Okay, so what it contains in this web service description language, WSDL, it contains methods or operations which this web service exposes. So that means like in this case, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, I'm exposing 4 operations. That information will say like, hey, these are the operations: operation addition, operation subtraction, operation multiplication, operation division. These are methods we'll mention in the WSDL. Okay, and then for each operation we'll specify what are the inputs and outputs. Okay, and once this is done, right, input output operations, we have an address. We have to specify that address. In case of provider, we will have an address. Even consumer also will have, but we'll say, okay, so that address says like IP and port number where this web service is hosted. And last one is like a protocol. So this web service is can be accessible over HTTP protocol or HTTPS protocol or JMS protocol. Okay, these are the things we will specify in the web service description language. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once we have web service description language, right? Once we have the web service description language and we develop our web services, we give this WSDL to consumers. Are you getting? So we develop our first we'll create WSDL. Okay, then we will develop a web service. That WSDL we will give to consumers. Okay, we'll say that, hey, this is my web service. I have described everything about my web service in the WSDL. Use this WSDL and you can make a call to our service. Are you getting? You can make a call to our service, providing your input outputs, so that I can calculate and whatever I can do, I will return the response back to you. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this one entire thing we will develop. First, I will show you add, subtract, multiplication, division. Okay. But what you will do is get employee ID. So since you know already database, right? Okay. You will create a database. Okay. So a table, and then you can use the adapter services to access that table. Okay. So this consumer will send a client ID. Your web service will receive a client employee ID. Then you will go to the adapter services and call this database. You will get the employee details. Okay, that employee details you will send it back to consumer. Are you getting? That you will develop. Everyone I wanted like to develop. So adapters, database, adapter services will develop the REST services.
Sir, once again repeat, sir. After writing this WSDL.
Okay, so first we will write the WSDL. Okay,
Yes.
then we will develop our web services.
Yes.
Okay, our web service is running. We'll start web service. It's running, correct? Then we'll give this WSDL, okay, to consumers. Okay, consumers like UI application is there, or maybe another Java application or .NET application or mobile application, anything. Okay, we'll say, hey, this is my WSDL. Okay, I described about my web services. All the details are there in WSDL. Okay, you can use this WSDL to develop your code, and you can make a call to my web service. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So this WSDL is nothing but I can say contract about my web service, right? So I'm describing about my web service. So if any changes happen to my web service, okay, I need to go and update my WSDL, and then again I need to go to console. You got it, right? Everyone? Okay. So how this WSDL will share to consumers? Okay, there are various ways we can do. One is we can copy this WSDL, we can create the WSDL and copy that WSDL, and we can send by mail. We can generally will not do, but you can send it to, or we can store this in Centra site. Centra, I think some you heard in the beginning.
Yes, sir.
And, okay, so we will store this WSDL in Centra site, so that we'll say like, hey, I store the WSDL in Centra site. You can go and access. From there you can access. Or in integration server, this WSDL will be stored. we will get a URL also. This WSDL, when we created it, we'll get a URL for this WSDL. That URL we will give to consumers. Hey, you can download this WSDL. Okay, they get it, right? So that is how we'll share this WSDL to other client consumer applications. Okay, they will make the call. Okay, now I'm going to develop addition, subtraction, multiplication. How to develop this web service in web methods. Okay. Okay, now I'm creating a folder called package, my I can say calculator web service. Okay, I'm developing a calculator web service, but some you guys develop employee web service. Okay, so this calculator web service, first listen everyone, and then you guys I will the way like yesterday we did, right? Again similarly, I will develop first, I will show you, then one more time I will develop, at the time you guys also develop. Okay, and third you will do the assignment. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
At the end of the day, after this web service, after developing, you should not say that I don't know web services, soap services. Okay, very important practice. Okay, theory part we will learn. I will give you some links also to study. Okay, that is a different theory part. Means like if anyone asks interview, oh, what is the definition of soap, what is the definition of WSDL, WSDL, what exactly it contains, these are the questions we'll ask. Anyone will ask you what is SOAP, simple object access protocol. It can be used for communicating between two applications over the net. Okay, what is WSDL, web service description language, what it contains. These are the questions will come. Okay, in interview. That is how I ask whoever knows web services, I will ask the same questions. Okay, so for that you have to study some documents, some. Okay, that I will give you the links. Okay, so now I created call visitor WS service. So I'm creating a folder again, calculator web service. I will give calculator WSC finish. So I know we cannot rename this one, so I'm deleting again. I wanted to write package again, calculator web service. Okay. So under calculator, what I am doing is again creating a folder called calc ws. Okay, now here what I am doing is I will create a flow service first. Flow service. Okay, here doc, we'll create a document also. Okay, input the folder structure I'm creating, and I will create a provider. Are you getting whatever I'm saying now? Provider. So you know provider, what is provider? We did now. So this part is a provider. Correct? This is a provider service. Okay, I will use a provider. Folder called provider. Okay, so if there is a consumer, so I can create a consumer folder. So just keep it consumer. Okay. We're not going to use now, but we'll do that consumer. Clear, right? Now let's say addition. I know two inputs, one output, right? Okay, so I will create a document. You can create, there's no need to creating a document type, but I'm created. Okay, request, I will say it's a request. Request is my document type. Okay, we know like two inputs, right? I'll say in one my input, in two is my input. Okay, you can change it also. Okay, but I'm just using like that. Okay, document type. So this is response, request and response. Okay, this is output. Okay, I know my request and response I've created. For each of the three operations we know. Flow services I'm going to create. One is addition, flow service. If I get 2 input, it calculates the output. Okay, so add is the flow service. Okay, so we know like inputs are right. I will use this request as an input. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we can create, but I thought like create separately, because now I don't want like so if you see here, right, input is separate, output is separate, right? Yeah, so I wanted to make it separate. Okay. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rules anything, but it's a way of reusability concepts I'm using. After that it will be useful. Okay, are you getting? So you can create in one document itself both request and response, everything, A, B, in and out. But I wanted to separate it out because when I used this one in the output right here, in and out here, okay, input I will have in in1, in2 and out one. Again the output also in1, in2 and output will be there, which is not correct, right? If I use one request, suppose let's say I'm creating a document type, let's say test. Okay, just giving. So if I, what you are saying is input one, use it here, input one, in one, into okay, out also you want me to use here, correct? You're asking like this, right? If I use like that, if I go here, if I put it here, I will get all my inputs, right? All three in the input. In one, into, are you getting? So which is not correct, right? Is it correct? So let's say I remove this one. I remove this one. Okay. Here I can use this also output. Okay. So it contains all the three inputs, three fields. Input also three fields, output three fields, which is not correct, right? If I use any, suppose let's say map. So output also I have three fields, which is not correct.
Sir, same.
Yeah, I'm not save. Okay, here, let me save. See, even input also three, output also zero, three, which is not correct, right? I should not have this one is my output, right? I can drop it, but what is the use of this one, which is not correct? Okay, so that's why what I am doing is I created separately my in and request and response. Okay, in both ways is correct, but I thought to do like that. Okay, now request is here. Okay, and the response is here. Okay, so this is my add service. Okay, similarly I'm doing multiplication also. Okay, multiplication. So basically these are the operations. Okay, what I'm doing is this is request. Okay, and this one is response. Okay, so this is done for addition subtraction. So here in add, I will go to the tree. From input to output I will map it. Okay, this output, right? I will do some kind of addition, transformation, add transformation. Okay, or instead of map also I can use, you know, right, in the public we have a add-ins or their public. Yeah, I can use add-ins, or I can use this also. So I thought to go with transformations. Okay, we know transformations cascades cannot be done, means output of one transformation you cannot map it to the input of another transformations. You remember, right, everyone? Okay,
Sir.
so when I'm saying transformation, I'm just giving you recollecting all what we learned. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So we can connect to the
Yeah. So implicit mapping will not be done inside the mapping.
Much.
Okay, so we have to do mapping, these linkings, implicit linking, it will not work. We have to do implicit, explicit linking. Okay, like this. Implicit linking is nothing but if the names are same, so for some
Automatically it maps.
correct. So this is done. Okay, I don't want the response output. I can drop this one. So okay, it's not coming. Okay, that's fine. Okay, addition is done. Multiplication also, I'm going here. I will put it a mapper. Okay, here also we have response rate. So I can add transformation, math transformation, multiply hints. Okay, I can drag like this. It will show you which number. Okay, number 1. I'm dragging it here also. I can select number 2. This output I can map it to output values. Okay, now my operations are done. Okay, these are called as operations. Now on the provider, okay, I had to create a visitor provider. I'm creating a visitor web service description language, web service description. Okay, I'm going to create web service. This I call it as a calculator web service description. This one is WSP. I will say I'm giving name. So this one is a WSDL. I'm going to create a web service description, but for provider. Okay, so WSG underscore provider. I'm giving the name. It's a provider, right? We are creating a service. You're getting right. So this side I'm exposing web service, exposing operations. I'm exposing operation, addition, multiplication. That's why I'm talking about saying as provider. Okay. Then it was see source type. Are you going to create a provider or are you creating a consumer? Okay, it's asking like you want to create this consumer or you wanted to create a provider. So I'm creating a provider, so I'm selecting the provider. Okay, so it will ask two kinds of questions like the web service source. So do you have, so you wanted to use existing IS service? Yes, because I add and multiply created, right? I wanted to use those two existing IS services to create a visitor. Okay, sometimes manually someone is created visitor and given us, we can use that visitor also to create a provider. You're getting right what I'm saying? So to create a provider visitor web service description language, you have to select a provider and existing IS services. Okay, click next. The location where your operations are there. So these are the two operations. Select one or more services to use as an operations. So addition, multiplication, these two are selected with control button. Click next. Okay. Now it says binder. In the binder details, we have to provide the binder details. So what is the version of SOAP? Latest version is 1.2. Okay. What is the SOAP version? Anyone ask what is the SOAP version you want? Okay, you can say SOAP version. What are the SOAP versions available? 1.1 and 1.2. Okay. Are you getting? Or I'm teaching something which is you're not able to understand. You're able to understand, right? Whatever I'm explaining. Okay. So transport. The way we mentioned at transport, I told you, right? So transport is HTTP transport, HTTPS, JMS. So here these are the three transports are available. SOAP services can be developed using HTTP or HTTPS, JMS. So I'm selecting HTTP. So document styles are there. Styles, there are two kinds of styles are there. You'll learn later. Document and RPC. There are two styles of operations are there. Okay. Just to remember only, no one will ask you what is document, what is RCP. Okay. Now this is a target namespace. We'll come and learn. I think you remember it in XSD also we have a target namespace.
Sure.
Okay. So there also suppose let's say two elements. If the same element exists in two schemas, we can use namespace to distinguish.
Yes.
Okay, so similar to like apartment number I given you, I think you remember. same
sir.
flat number is exist in 2 apartments. So we need to select a apartment name dot flat number. So that is a namespace. Okay. Similarly here also. In our web methods also, I think you remember namespace conflict. Okay, fully qualified name. The service name can be exist in 2 locations, but fully qualified path should not be same. Correct, right? Okay. Okay, then click finish. It creates a WSDL. Okay, so WSDL contains operations. I told you, right? What are the operations there? My web service is there. That operations binder, like the transport details, it will be there. Okay, handlers will be there. Policies, these are you can ignore for now, but later you will learn WSDL. So this is, I told you, right? WSDL, how it looks like. Okay, it's an XML. If you see, this is an XML tags only. Okay, web service description language, this is the language. Okay, but it's written in WSDL, XML. Okay, it contains all the operations. So add, response, multiply. So these are my request and response. Okay, if I go, it provides, like, operations. What are the operations we are exposing? Add, multiply. Are you getting? And here, if you go to operation again, add and up, we'll come back. There is a SOAP action which is important. Later you learn. But this WSDL contains operations. Okay, and the location, address location. Okay, so this is my local host. This dog, this one is no completely my web service local host. Okay, 555. This is the location where my service is running. Are you getting? So location will be there, operations will be there, input output parameters are there in this WSDL. Is it clear so far? What I did is, first I'm going back again. I created documents. Okay, then I created a flow services. Okay, addition subtraction. Okay, so for addition you have added input request and output response. Multiplication also you did same. Okay, in the provider, what I'm doing is I selected this web service descriptor and then click next. It asks whether you want to create for provider or consumer. So right now we are creating for provider, so select a provider. Okay, existing IS services. Okay, then I'm selecting my services which I developed so far. Okay, wanted to expose. So if you select one at a time, it will not select. So you have to click on the control button, select two. Okay, click next. So then you are specifying so version. Okay, so version 1.2 transport protocol, HTTP are using HTTPS using JMS. Okay, we'll learn about HTTPS. What is HTTPS? It's a secure. If you see, look at the ICICI bank or any banks, that site will be HTTPS. Okay, secured. Okay, so then we'll click finish. You got it, right? Okay,
Yes, sir.
then you will get an operation. This the WSDL you will get. Okay, if you see this addition, multiplication, these are the two operations are there. If I expand addition, this is my request, this is response. So we know our body contains addition, add and do, but web service, right? Web service adds few more things, like header will be there and body will be there. I think you remember JMS. JMS message contains message, JMS message, header. Under JMS message you will have header, property, body. You remember, right?
Yes, sir.
Everyone, not only
Yes, sir.
here also. In the operation, I have a request. It contains header, body. Inside my body, I have in1, in2. These are my request parameters. Similarly, response also will have header. This header is very important. We'll talk about what is header, what it contains, like username, password, authentication. Those things will be a command under header. Okay, body will be there. Body is my response, which is output, and fault is there. Fault is nothing but if in our server when this service execution, if anything error occurred, Okay, that we will send it as a fault. Okay, we'll talk about fault later. Okay, but you got a little bit idea, right? I know it takes time for you guys to understand and remember things, but you just try to understand what is going on. Okay, binders, okay, you can leave these binders. Handlers, you can leave it. Policy, you can leave this. It gives you WSDL, which is of source. This one we generally give it to consume clients. The one I consumer, I told you, right? So this WSDL, we describe all this WSDL here in the WSDL. So actually here manually we are writing. We are not manually. This web methods automatically generated this WSDL. But in case of Java or .NET somewhere, we generally write in manual. Means like manually we will write. Okay, we'll open a notepad plus and we will write entire thing. Okay, but web methods it's giving automatically generated. WSDL is automatically generated for us. Okay, this WSDL we call it as a concrete WSDL. Okay, are you getting concrete WSDL? Okay. WSDL. Okay, concrete WSDL because it contains input output, operation names, address, location also there. Address means like location is also there. Protocol also is there. Protocol, which protocol I'm using, HTTP. So this call as a WSDL. So we created a provider. Is it clear? So now how to test this one, addition subtraction. Okay. If you go to the right side, you have a WSDL URL. This is a location where this WSDL is stored on integration server. Okay, even though we are able to see here, okay, under the folder, but everything will stored under integration server only, right? I think you know, guys, whatever the code we developed, all these are storing on integration server, correct?
Yes.
So this WSDL also, this whatever is created, it is stored in integration server. That is a URL is given here. I'm using this URL. Okay, I'm going to my SOAP. So my consumer is, I'm using consumer client application as SOAP. Okay, SOAP AI is a tool for testing our web services. It's a acts like a client. Are you getting, everyone? Okay, since I don't have a Java application code, it takes time for us to write Java code, right? Okay, so instead of using Java, I'm using a SOAP AI just for testing our service. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so what I'm doing is, everyone open, right? So it looks like this one. When you open first time, it looks like this. Okay, still okay, provided still click OK. It gives you a client. So it's saying request response. Two operations we exposed, right? We developed two operations. If I click on this one, so it is asking like an int 1, int 2. I can give my int 5, let's say integer 1. Okay, 6. Let me test whether it works or not. It says access denied. Access to my web service is denied. Okay, because I need to provide header. Here, click on header. So authorization. We need to click on author here, and we'll add a new authorization, basic authorization. What is this one? We'll know later, but just remember we have to give our administrator. I think we are giving our username password. Even in case of browser we are accessing, right? It asks for username password. You remember when we testing flow services
Yes,
In
sir.
from the
browser.
browser.
Yes, sir.
So I'm sending a SOAP request, right? So at that time also I need to give my username password. So in SOAP here under authorization basic we can give that username password. Okay, I will send the request. It's taking time. I think my integration server is down. Let's see. Oops. Okay. I know my integration server is down. That's it. Okay. So let me start again. Are you getting whatever I am explaining now so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, started. I'm going to send request again. See, I got 11. 6 plus 5, 11. I got the output. You got it, right? So it went to our integration server. Whatever the code is there, it is executed and it returned the response. So from the client, which is OPA, I send a request, add two numbers. Okay, add operation. I'm calling add operation. This is my add operation. Okay, and this is a URL. If you see, this is a URL. I'm calling my web service. Okay, and this is request. It contains envelope. Something information is there. I'm not going to explain what is that envelope. Later you will learn. Okay, but right now what you learn is from here you can request to web service. You got the response. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now similarly multiplication, if I go multiplication, let's say I give input 3, 5, 4, but my authorization I need to give like basic data select here, administrator. I got it. 4 into 3, 12. You got it, right? So again I'm going to explain, but this time you guys also working on the same.
Okay.
So before that, any questions here? What we develop, basically what we are developing, everyone got it or not? Nagaraju, Jeshwant.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can you open document?
Hmm?
Can you open document in document?